Here I am with our monthly conversation with Peter Miller, changed from once a week to once a month because you had enough of us. Maybe we had enough of ourselves. Anyway, I want to introduce each of these short videos, at least for the next week or so, with two statements. One, it is extremely unlikely Earth or any other planet could support complex life. Yet, here we are. And second, the odds against any one of us being here on Earth in physical form are exceptionally high. Yet again, here we are, and I have some numbers for this one. The odds of us existing are approximately 1 times 10 to the 2,685,000th power. Our universe has about 10 to the 80th atoms. So we have to multiply that 10 to the 80th times 33,562 and a half to get to 1 times 10 to the 2,685,000th power. So that tells me that it's exceptionally rare to the point of being bizarre that we are here in physical form, and yet here we are. For me, that suggests the idea of gratitude. And so we're going to, I imagine, drop the idea of gratitude now and then. And we also want to address a few questions along the way that we will hopefully respond to in relatively short manner, and then have several short videos, given given the ability of all of us to absorb new information. So, all that said in a very long manner, the question for the day is, how do we live? How do we live? Assuming that we have some measure of free will, assuming that we have some power over choosing how we live, how do we live? And for me, this includes many of the ideas underlying modern Stoicism, many, but not all of the ideas, which lead to the idea of finding purpose and creating meaning in our relatively short lives. So, thank you, Peter Miller, for joining me again. And that's a long introduction to what I thought was going to be a short video. So, welcome aboard and let's get rolling.
Yeah, the video's over. After
Our time is up.
yeah. How do we live is the question, and acknowledging the rareness, I guess, or the kind of quote unquote kind of the miracle of being here. When you look at all the numbers and factor everything in. So, I mean, to live with a sense of wonder and appreciation, I think is helpful. Anytime you're out in somewhere in nature and it's a new novel experience, and you kind of suddenly have that moment of like, wow, this is amazing to see this happening and to see all these other forms of life, around me, that sense of wonder and awe that you can experience. I don't know, like maybe if you go to the mountains for the first time, or if the first time you see the ocean or something like that. Like I can recall moments like that in my life. And maybe those are actually good to pursue because maybe it brings you into that state of wonder and awe and perhaps humility towards nature and being part of something uh, rare, um, and rare and amazing. I don't know how else to phrase that.
Well,
So it's
that's
like
a great way
what kind of what's that?
that's a great way to phrase it.
Yeah, what kind of sentiments can we use, to contribute to what we're a part of and what's around us, and to contribute in a way that's, I don't know, sustaining, harmonizing, aligning, like words like that, to be part of it, I guess, instead of wrecking it, right?
Right.
Or abusing it.
Or only watching it on television, right? Or on the big screen. That's how a lot
Hmm.
of people experience the world, is by watching it on a screen. And
Hmm.
it's not the same thing as being in nature, as being in the woods, surrounded by native organisms, by birds and skunks and foxes and whatever. That's a
Hmm.
completely different experience than looking at it on a screen.
Yeah, I think we are getting lost to that, to engage all of the senses, instead of just like sight and sound through the rectangular brick that we carry around, or the computer screen or the television, right? So I guess, yeah, to kind of recall that the importance, if you really want to um, be engaged as a human and be part of nature, you need to have that kind of exposure. And maybe we've forgotten that by and large as we live our lives.
I can still remember when I was a kid, I just took it for granted because I lived in a village surrounded by trees, and they were old growth trees at that time. They've all been cut down now, of course. But I could go out into the woods. I could walk into the woods, something that basically no kids get away with today because it's such a dangerous world out there. And
Mhm.
I could remember once I got away from the house and into the forest that the air was different. I could breathe it in and it smelled different. It tasted different. It felt different to me. And that's because all those plants were producing all that oxygen. It's an oxygen rich environment compared to our typical urban or suburban lives. And so you get out there in the woods surrounded by plants, by trees and other plants. It's a completely different experience. And you can smell it, you can taste it, you can feel it if you're paying attention. And so one of the things I would like for people to do is to pay attention.
And I guess to maybe ask that question, like, how much have I immersed myself in natural habitat in like the last month? Like, once or never? When I look at my regular everyday life, like it's mostly working through a computer screen and going to, the grocery store and maybe and mucking about in my own yard, which is a little bit of nature exposure, but not a lot.
Mhm.
Um, so I mean that's a question to ask, and maybe people don't ask that question anymore. Like, how much have I had exposure to nature? How much have I laid my hand on a tree in recent times? Have I smelled a flower, kind of thing, right? Have I listened to a stream?
Right,
Yeah, have I bathed in a lake or the ocean, whatever's available?
right.
Uh,
It's interesting because I try every day to accomplish one substantive thing, and I can look back on my phone. So, every 3 days I say shave, right? Because if I shave any more than that, it drives me out of my mind. It's just takes too much time. I don't want to spend my time doing that. If I
mhm.
wait more than 3 days, it's like pulling the whiskers out one by one, and that's painful for me. So
Yeah.
every 3 days is the optimal amount of shaving my face. I don't write that down, right? That doesn't remain at the end of the day. I like to have one thing left on, at least one thing left on my phone that I accomplished today. And today I already have this. This is one accomplishment. But I don't think people think about this very often. I'm not talking about going into work like most people do every day. I'm not talking about brushing your teeth or making dinner or doing those things that you have to do to get through your life. I'm talking about a substantive thing that maybe will engender a memory at some point in the future.
Yeah, an experience with nature that could become a memory is what you're saying, I think, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Um,
You
and
know, I,
those can become nice memories that we can draw upon.
I can still remember the first time I went to the ocean. I must have been 5 or 6 years old. I grew up in northern Idaho. We must have been visiting my grandparents. And my parents had always said that the ocean is salty. It's salt water. But I didn't really know what that meant. And then I'm running along the beach with my two siblings, and somebody kicked up a little bit of water. It landed on my lip. I stuck my tongue out and I go, "Holy cow, that's salty. That is really salty." I had no idea. I still remember that. It's got to be almost 60 years ago.
Wow. I have a similar experience about 40 years ago, when I was lucky enough to be able to go to Hawaii, and and I was in the Honolulu area where there's small waves, but I mean, I was a small person. Still am a small person, but as a kid. And the waves would literally like run me over. And same as you. I didn't realize how salty the water was until one time the wave hit me in the face and I literally inhaled a whole mouthful. And as soon as I inhaled it, I immediately vomited it back out because it was so salty.
Right,
So I'll never forget that. Yeah.
right. And so maybe that's what we can do. Maybe that's the take-home message of this relatively short video, is that we can create memories. And I think the best memories are created in nature. But even if they're not, even if you live in a big city and you have friends and you get together with the friends every now and then, that's a way of creating a memory as well. Spending time with people that you love and loving the time that you spend with those people. That matters.
And how to, I mean, we could maybe talk about this next time, but how to bring yourself into a state where you can enjoy that time. Um, One of my good friends who teaches breath work, he's full of wisdom, but one of the things that I remember him saying is that lots of us people living in the modern world get stuck in our heads, and we don't do things that bring ourselves into our bodies. So, like his breathwork classes would be an amazing tool for bringing you into your body, right, and out of your head. And I think the things we're talking about in nature do that in a similar way, where
Absolutely.
you get you become more not just so up here, but you embody your whole body.
It's a
And
whole body experience. When you're out in nature, when you're spending time with friends, with people you love, those are whole body experiences. You're experiencing emotions. You're not just sitting there like you're at work tapping on the keyboard, whatever.
And that probably induces the right conditions in our body chemistry, I don't know, to be like more patient, to maybe have more humor, to I don't know, just have more ability to get along in general. I think people need to learn more about mental health and relationships to fully get that. But the exposure to nature helps, at least in the short term.